And welcome into the Weekend Sit and Spin. Sit and Spin radio show. I'm your host, Nick O'Kelly, coming to you live on this Sunday morning German time. It's about 10:51 a.m. here. Starting a little bit early. Plan to shoot for 11 o'clock. But here we are now, and I'm trying to think, what time is it that means in America? It's about 5 a.m. So if you are up this early on a Sunday morning and want to give us a call, you can. It's 843-790-2992. That's 843-790-2992. Lots to go over today. It's really amazing to see the meltdown of Hollywood. And this, of course, coming from the recent Oscars, several TV events they have around this time of year with awards that they give themselves. I really don't watch them, to be honest, but it seems to me that Hollywood has become nothing more than the whining system for the liberal agenda. It's like they can't accept that Donald Trump is now the president, and so they have to go live on television and publicly denounce him. It's almost some kind of an initiation rite at this point. Don't you think? I mean, why is it that they have to go on public television and denounce him so loudly? You've got George Clooney. It's like, don't you have enough money? Don't people see you and hear you speak enough? I don't really care about actors and professional athletes talking about politics. They're not politicians, okay? I mean, of course, people are going to say, well, Ronald Reagan was a politician, Donald Trump. Yeah, but the thing is, they became politicians, okay? And after that, while they were politicians, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I don't even know, did he even do any movies while he was governor of California? I think he made some appearances. But they kind of sit that aside at that point and become a politician, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't go into politics. Anybody can. And that's really the point of politics, by the way. I didn't mean to get into this particular conversation, but I really, it gets on my nerves to hear people, especially during the campaign of Donald Trump, people were making the statement and the claim that because he's not a politician, he can't be in politics. He doesn't know how to run the country. I don't know how many times I heard that. Well, I don't think Donald Trump is capable of running the country because he's not a politician. Well, so what? I mean, politics was invented so that people who are Americans or people who are countrymen, I guess it doesn't have to be American, want to go run the government for a short period of time. It was never intended that you have career politicians, people that are there for so many years, and that's really where all of this waste and this corruption comes from. We wouldn't have a swamp to drain if it wasn't for the fact that there are career politicians in office who have found a way to stay there long enough because they're making money out of it. I mean, think about it. If you weren't making money from being there, why would they want to stay? George Washington didn't want to be president. Thomas Jefferson didn't want to be president. They did it because their people and their country needed them to do it. They needed them to set an example, and they tried to do so in such a way that they would never have to do it again. Thomas Jefferson, by the way, was in so much debt when he died that I think his grandchildren are still paying it off. They'll never pay off the debt that he owes. Now, I don't know that you can say that about very many politicians today. They're not in debt. They go into office to make money. That's why it was such a travesty, such a disgrace for Hillary Clinton to say, I don't even remember when it was, but she was on an interview and made the statement that her and Bill came out of office completely broke. Yeah, right. And we've got some stuff to talk about today with the Clintons because this week they've been under some fire for their illegal foundation that they have going on. And, of course, we've spoken about that many times on this show. But nevertheless, I wanted to get into, because I just have a whole stack of news here from, where is it? Let's see. A little disorganized this morning. I've got a whole stack of news here on the Hollywood people who are basically just have broken through, I think, at this point. They're so over the top that it's become over the top. I've got Leslie Jones ripping Trump. I didn't see the new Ghostbusters movie. I refuse to see the new Ghostbusters movie, and it's not because I'm some kind of a male supremacist or anything like that. I don't have any problem with women comedians or whatever. It's just that can we please get some new material in movies? What is with the remakes that are going on? Can we just talk about that for a second? I mean, and let me know your opinion as well, because maybe it's just me, but a lot of my childhood movies, my favorite childhood movies, have become trampled on by these remakes. You know, I mean, I think it started with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. South Park even made fun of this. Remaking, and not remaking, but I guess revitalizing their old movies. You remember Star Wars when they put in the computer animation with all the different aliens, like when they're riding through Tatooine. He stuck in a few deleted scenes and added in all of this computer graphics to make it look more like the movies that he came out with later. And that was bad enough. I mean, at this point, if you try to watch a Star Wars movie, let's say you don't own them, let's say you're part of the 2% in the world who don't own the movies, and you go to the store to buy a copy because you finally wised up, all you're going to be able to find, unfortunately, is the newer, I can't even think of the word, the newer remastered versions of these movies. You're not going to be able to find the old ones anymore. I don't even think they print them, and it's really sad. Because the new one, for example, at the very end of episode 6, where Luke is looking off into the woods and he sees the ghost forms of Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and also Anakin Skywalker, his father. The only thing that you see now is, instead of the original actor playing Anakin Skywalker, you see Hayden Christensen, which, by the way, was basically the reason that I hated the new movies. I mean, he's terrible. Is he not? Is he not terrible? The guy was awful. I mean, the little boy they had playing in the very first episode, episode 1, he was pretty bad, but he's a little boy, so I think you can kind of forgive him for being a terrible actor, because he's just meant to be there. He wasn't like the lead actor. But episode 2 and 3 become all about Anakin, basically, and so he's more or less the lead actor, and he was surrounded by some good actors. I mean, you have Natalie Portman, who's pretty good. You've got Ewan McGregor, who's very good. Sam Jackson thrown into the mix. Whatever, but nevertheless, they're not bad actors that were around him. And the writing was, it was okay. But he was pretty bad. And I just, now all you can see in these remastered versions of it is the ghost of Hayden Christensen. And that's not what I want to show my kids. Unfortunately, the only copies I have of the original releases are on VHS. I don't even think I have a VHS player anymore. Listen to me, VHS, VCR player. I don't have that anymore, and so that was bad enough. But then that evolved into, well, of course, then Steven Spielberg remade, quote-unquote, it wasn't really a remake, but it was a new sequel to Indiana Jones. And I watched that, The Crystal Skulls, and, you know, I remember at the time thinking, this is pretty good, but I realized that I was a kid when I saw it. And now I went back and watched it relatively recently, and I realized just how awful it was. It was pretty bad. And I wonder, with Harrison Ford being so against coming out and doing the new Star Wars movies, because basically he said, I don't want to have anything to do with it, which, I mean, for me, it's like, are you kidding me? I mean, it's literally, I mean, he's Han Solo. Why wouldn't he want to have anything to do with that? He's an icon for millions of people around the world. I mean, you would think he would embrace that a little bit, but for whatever reason, I mean, the guy, come on, he's landing on taxiways instead of runways. Did you see that, by the way? Harrison Ford was flying his plane. He's an avid pilot. Of course, he crash landed one not long ago. I think that was maybe a year or two ago that he crash landed one of his classic planes that he was flying, single engine. He's a big single engine pilot. But anyway, of course, that wasn't his fault. It crash landed because there was some kind of a failure of a carburetor or something like that on the engine. And so he had to crash land this thing, and everybody's like, oh my God, he's a hero. He's not a hero, but, he's so brave or whatever. He was unharmed, walked away from the crash unharmed. So he was in the news for that, and then very recently, just a couple of, I think 2 weeks ago, he was in the news because he was landing another single-engine plane and was told which runway to go on, and for some reason, instead of landing on that runway, he landed on the taxiway. Of course, the basically access road beside of the tarmac that planes often will wait on or use to drive along to get to the tarmac. The unfortunate thing for him was there was a taxi waiting there, a plane waiting there in tow, waiting for him to land. And so he had to basically bunny hop over this thing with his airplane. Unbelievable. But anyway, that's beside the point. That's just rambling. He wanted nothing to do with Star Wars. Somehow they managed to convince him to come back and do Force Awakens, which, listen, the difference between the sequels to Indiana Jones that they made and the Force Awakens, number one is we finally got... I had no problem with George Lucas doing episode 1 through 3. And I didn't mean to go into a whole thing about movies, but hey, this is a radio show. Okay, stream of conscious. If you don't like it, then don't listen. But I like to think that that's why people actually download this thing, because I just ramble on and on about whatever comes to mind, and I put a political spin on it. But because of that stream of conscious, sometimes I go places I don't mean to. But nevertheless, you're here to hear my commentary, so you're going to get it. I had no problem with George Lucas creating episodes 1 through 3. I was very excited about them. And, I still go watch them. I don't completely hate them. But the problem is, he put way too much computer animation into it. The graphics on the computer, the rendering just simply was not there at the time technologically. And so you have things that just don't look good. And I wish they would have just used more live action models and puppeteering and this kind of thing. You remember in the episode 1, they did have a puppet Yoda still. But then in episode 2 and 3, he was completely digitized, which, as they released him, the technology kept getting a little bit better and a little bit better, so it wasn't so bad. But seeing him hopping all over the place like a frog or something and lightsaber battling with Dooku was just, I don't know. It was just a little too much for me. And that was the big problem. I think George Lucas tried to do those movies too early. He should have waited about 5 to 10 years. And then I think it would have been probably okay. You can see, but even like Lord of the Rings, even with the animation that they put into those movies, for example, The Hobbit, which, by the way, the Hobbit series, in my opinion, is at least as good as the Lord of the Rings series. It was really good. The budget, I think, was smaller for the very first movie, but the second and the third one that they did were very big budget, and you had the really epic battle scenes, much like in Lord of the Rings. I enjoyed it thoroughly, but nevertheless, you still had a lot more computer animation there. And I don't really understand that because, for example, you look at the original Star Wars, they use the sets and the models for the space battles of the ships, and it makes it look more realistic. So anyway, the point being that he tried to do those movies too early. I didn't have a problem with them. I had a problem with the technology, and I had a problem with Hayden Christensen. So, that being said, what J.J. Abrams got right about the newest Star Wars Episode 7, Force Awakens, and even Rogue One, J.J. Abrams didn't do that one, but Disney did. They have a nice mix of computer animation and real-life modeling and sets, and, your stormtroopers are not all digitized in the background. You really just have 150 people running in stormtrooper outfits, and it looks more real. Okay, so they have that mix there that makes them more realistic and much better. The difference between those movies and the sequel to Indiana Jones is that those movies were already planned by George Lucas from the very beginning. So you can't really call it going back and making a sequel to try to capitalize off of the syndicated success. Okay, I mean, Indiana Jones gets played on, the USA Network? Probably, I mean, what do they pick, like one weekend out of every 2 months and play every single Indiana Jones in a rotation all weekend long? That's syndicated success. They only do that because people actually watch it when they play it. And of course, they've been releasing these movies back to theaters and so on every once in a while around the country. So they see that success, and the movie company says, okay, well, we can't come up with anything else new, so let's just go back and hire a director and a writer, and let's do a new sequel to it. That's the difference between that and Star Wars. George Lucas had a plan from the beginning. He finally got wise, realized he was too old and senile, and sold it to Disney, who's made it into a phenomenon again. And now it's great. And Indiana Jones, where the company just said, we can't come up with anything else new. I mean, for goodness sakes, they made a remake to Vacation with that guy from The Office. It was terrible. This movie was horrible. In fact, I only watched about 5 minutes of it because I thought, let me just try. What? It's like Chevy Chase's son or something? And somehow I'm supposed to believe that his vacations, because Chevy Chase was so bad, that somehow his vacations are also bad? I mean, it's stupid. Why not just make another vacation movie with Chevy Chase? And it goes on and on. Harrison Ford, just to finish up that thought, he didn't want to have anything else to do with Star Wars, to the point that he agreed to do Force Awakens only because they killed him off. But yet he agreed to do the Crystal Skulls. Did not understand that. You know, I didn't get that. That's all I wanted to say about that. But the remake thing is now, it's gone too far. Now you've got the remake of Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is one of my favorite all-time comedies. I mean, I watched the thing. I've watched it so many times. I know it by heart. Literally. And I know a lot of movies by heart. I'm a big movie guy. But why remake it? And then remake it with all girls. Like somehow you think that it's sexist to have a Ghostbusters with all guys. Which, by the way, it wasn't an all-guy cast. Of course, you had Sigourney Weaver. You had their secretary lady, who was also very funny. I don't know her name. I think she was also on Saturday Night Live. I mean, that's really what it was at the time. It was a Saturday Night Live movie. And so they tried to, once again, go back. The movie company says, we don't have any other good ideas. Everybody likes Ghostbusters. Why don't we remake it with the newer SNL cast members? And the one chosen, and they even picked women who could be like, I mean, they're not doppelgangers, but basically they're put in there because they're the same type of actor, I guess, to fill that role. And so they have one African American as well, Leslie Jones from Saturday Night Live, actress and comedian. I think that's a stretch because I've seen her comedy, I've seen her movies, I've seen her on Saturday Night Live. In my opinion, she's terrible. She's not funny, and I don't. I also really don't understand what's happened to comedy. Comedy has become not comedy. It's like the new version of comedy is that you're so outrageous and liberal that you assume people will laugh at you. But when they don't, they force laughter because they don't want to be discriminative. That's what comedy's become, a farce. It's become something that you have to force yourself to laugh because you feel so bad for the people who are doing such ridiculous antics. And that's what I see when I watch Saturday Night Live now. It's really painful for me to try to watch it. I don't watch it, actually. I'm a big fan of Keenan. Is he even still on it, by the way? I think he is, but I'm a big Keenan fan. I grew up with him. You know, but I bought a season of all that recently on iTunes because I thought to myself, I used to love these shows so much. I just wonder, were they actually funny, or did I just like them because I was a kid? I like to think that they were just actually funny, because I don't want to look back on my childhood television shows that everyone seems to have liked and think that I only liked them because I was juvenile, but not, because I bought the thing and I've watched through the episodes, and yeah, okay, there are some, there's a lot of humor there that's directed at kids, of course, and so you watch that and you think, that's just funny for kids, but overall, they were actually funny actors. They did well. I mean, they were in front of a live audience. That's a big thing, too. There are no more live audiences with television. What's the deal with that? All sitcom, quote-unquote, is a stage comedy show in front of a live audience and taped for television. That's what it is. That's what Seinfeld was. That's what Friends was. All of these famous sitcoms that... the 90s were full of them, and they were great. Even down to, like, Family Matters and... Step by Step and all these different shows that they had. Think about it. Home Improvement. A lot of them were ABC. All of these shows were taped in front of a live studio audience. What has happened to that? It's like the shows have become, and that's what I'm talking about with comedy. It's a farce now, because it's like these writers don't want the live audiences to hurt these bad actors' feelings, because they know that they're terrible actors, they know that the writing is terrible, and it's to the point that they assume that if they were to allow people to see this, they definitely wouldn't laugh, and then you'd have hurt feelings on the stage, so they can't allow that, so they've taken away the live audiences. It's really something. Anyway, getting back to this Leslie Jones, who is not funny, slammed President Donald Trump, and then scolded white women who support Black Lives Matter, and tackled her controversy-filled career. This was Thursday night, in a stand-up comedy set she did in New York. The New York Times called it a raucous, high-volume stand-up set. Not sure exactly what that means, but nevertheless... the Saturday Night Live star also chided white women who show up and march in Black Lives Matter protests because, you don't want anything to do with white people. It's all about, it's Black Lives Matter, right? And actually, I have to say, I don't really understand, because the Black Lives Matter movement, by the way, was started on a lie. It was started with the hands up, don't shoot thing, but yet the guy actually didn't do that, and it's been proven that he was charging that cop. And so, that of course started all the Ferguson riots and everything. And so this is a direct result, Black Lives Matter, of liberal funding in going into, what do you call it, going into causes, let's say, that are only created to cause trouble. Social justice activist groups, which go out and just basically create a fuss, as we say down in the South. And, George Soros funds Black Lives Matter. That's all these protests. You look at these things on television. I'm glad they've calmed down a little bit now, even though now they're planning another women's march. I saw that. They go out and they burn buildings, and they march through the streets and block traffic. I remember the last one, they actually went out into an interstate and blocked traffic on the interstate, which, by the way, is a federal crime. I believe in the right to protest. 100%. That's one of the things that makes our democracy so special, is the fact that we do have the right to go out and protest things that we don't agree with. Normally that has something to do with the government. In this case, it has more to do with the law being enforced by policemen and their brainwashed idea that somehow racism still exists. This is what I was touching on yesterday, too. Would racism still exist if it wasn't for the Obama administration allowing the George Soros types to fund things like Black Lives Matter. I mean, why has an attorney general, which I'm hoping Jeff Sessions does, not already investigated the funding into these groups and George Soros, which I'm sure he's doing, to find out exactly where that money's going and whether or not it's a crime to... I mean, think about this. It's illegal to cross a state border with an intent to cause a disruption and to create a... I can't think of the right word. Not a protest, but to stir up trouble, basically. That's illegal. You're not allowed to do that. If you're intending to go into another state that you don't belong to and start a riot, start a riot, which is exactly what Ferguson was. I mean, that was a riot. And I don't understand the logic behind having these riots. I mean, don't these people understand that it's going to destroy business? That new businesses and investors are not going to want to come into these communities? I mean, think about it. If you go destroy the local KFC and burn the building down while your protest is going on and saying, KFC is run by fascist pigs, and break all the windows and act like you're going to, kill all the people inside, do you really think that KFC is going to rebuild a fast food store in that city? I mean, the smart thing would be no, that they wouldn't, especially if it's a small town like Ferguson. They're not going to rebuild there. So you are causing a riot and damaging the community overall. I mean, these Black Lives Matter people are supposed to be in favor of helping their own people and doing good for their community, right? They're activists. Well, it's not doing good for the community. It's doing more harm than good. It's doing a lot of harm, in fact. And I don't want to say half, but I'd say a majority of the people that have taken part in these riots in Maryland, in Ferguson, in South Carolina, when they had the Dylan Roof thing going on, a lot of these people that show up for these things are from out of state, funded and organized by, for example, George Soros. Not to keep mentioning him, there are others, but he's one of the biggest. That's illegal. So why has Jeff Sessions, well, I'm sure he's going to, but why has an attorney general not done anything about this yet? Why did Obama not instruct his attorney general to get to the bottom of these things? Because he was on television promoting it, saying it was their right to protest, and he was proud of them. He said that after he left office. And this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Leslie Jones said, not one black woman out there, black women at home watching Housewives of Atlanta. What does that tell you, Leslie? If the smart black women who, for whatever reason, enjoy if they somewhat enjoy Housewives of Atlanta, if they're at home watching television, then why are any protesters out on the street? Maybe it's because they were paid to be there. She said, I want to be in love, quote unquote. I want to do that, but it's 2017 and we got a pig in the office. The world is about to end. Now, tell me why that makes sense. So she wants to have a personal relationship, but she feels as though she can't because there's a pig in office. First of all, normally when you refer to people as pigs, they are cops or law enforcement agents. Donald Trump is not one of those. Or they are somehow a white supremacist or a white male supremacist, sexist. I don't know all the words for it. Once again, and she expects people to laugh at this, and maybe they did, but why is that comedy? To say that your president is a pig. I mean, the guy is trying to create jobs to help the African American community. I don't understand the perpetuation of this idea that somehow he hates women and wants to do bad things about and to women. And that's just one person in Hollywood. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like I said, I have a whole stack of things here. Jodie Foster says, This is our time to resist. This one coming from Jerome Hudson at Breitbart. She condemned President Donald Trump's policies Friday during United Talent Agency's star-studded United Voices rally outside the company's Beverly Hills headquarters. Foster, famous for avoiding the spotlight and politics, took the stage in front of hundreds of pro-refugee protesters and delivered a blistering critique of Trump's immigration and national security agenda. Well, that's interesting. I've even got the video here. Quote, "We know that the first attack on democracy is an assault on free expression, civil liberties, and the relentless war on the truth." Let's see if we can get that video queued up, because it's really amazing for me to hear these people coming out against Trump and trying to figure out what the logic is behind it. The video actually comes from the Telegraph, if I can get this thing loaded here. All right, very good.
We know that the first attack on democracy is an assault on free expression and civil liberties, and this relentless war on truth. And unfortunately, sadly, it's too familiar because history repeats itself. So you're going to remember where you were today and what you did at this particular time in history. And no matter where you're born and no matter who you voted for, red or blue, whether you're white, black, or brown, and all the colors of the identity rainbow, this is our time to resist. It's our time to tell our elected officials to do their job. That we will not tolerate chaos, ineptitude, and warmongering.
There are people that are giving up everything. They've lost everything they have, and are struggling to keep their families alive and to keep.
All right,
I
can't listen to this anymore because it upsets me to hear people like Michael J. Fox coming out and saying this kind of stuff. The thing is, see, they're focused on the fact that, or it's not a fact, but they're focused on Trump banning immigrants, and you couldn't see that listening to the radio show, but in the video they show people in the crowd holding up signs that says "No ban, no wall, let immigrants in," so on and so on. It has nothing to do. I mean, I keep repeating this point, but it has nothing to do with immigrants. Okay, it has to do with illegal immigrants coming into the country. There is an immigration process. It's not that hard to immigrate. I have a friend who is married to a Russian who immigrated to our country. Yeah, okay, they had to go through some scrutiny. They had to sign a lot of paperwork. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but she came to this country. She wanted to assimilate into our society. She has. She's doing fantastic, actually. She's got a great career for herself. I mean, she's not here not paying taxes. She's here. She's paying taxes. Making a good income. They've got a good house. They've got a baby. This is what immigration is. Someone from another country wanting to come here for a better life or because they like the beaches in America or whatever. And so they go through the immigration process legally and then get a job and pay taxes. That's all we're asking. That's all I want. I just don't want people coming in here and taking advantage of our economy. We have enough problems as it is. A lot of those problems economically have to do with the fact that there's been floods of illegals coming through. I mean, it's been happening for years. This was happening even before Obama. It's just Obama opened the floodgates. We have, in the town I grew up in, an area that we called Little Mexico. And it wasn't racist. It was, when you drive into this area of the town, all you see are signs in Spanish, strip malls with Mexican shops and butchers and tire shops. And it's not that they're not hard workers, and entrepreneurs and that I don't respect that. It's that I know for a fact that the majority of them are not paying taxes. So all the money getting funneled into those businesses are getting shipped back down south to Mexico to their families, which again, it's not that I want to blame them for trying to make a better life for their family. It's not even necessarily their fault, because they were allowed to come across and do it. I mean, the government should have sent them home a long time ago, or at least gotten them to immigrate. I mean, the thing is, once you're here illegally, you are a criminal, and you need to either leave or at the very least go through the immigration process. I mean, it's not like they couldn't do that, and that's what bothers me so much. And you've got people now saying that Trump is, what was it, Bill Maher? Trump is rounding up, let's see if I can still find that. Trump is rounding up 16-year-olds in schools or whatever it was. I can't find... All right, let's search for it. Trump is rounding up kids in schools. You can look this up yourself. I just want to find this. Yeah, I can't find it. Anyway, Bill Maher, can't stand the guy, went on to his show and talked about how Trump was rounding up kids in schools and how terrible that was. Listen, Trump is rounding up people who are illegal aliens and that need to be sent back home because they're not supposed to be here. If they want to come through, that's fine, but they need to come through legally. And also, by the way, Trump is only trying to get rid of dangerous criminals. And we've got more from Bill Maher to go over later as well. Speaking of the Hollywood stuff, Jack Black was another one too. Like I said, it pains me to see Michael J. Fox up there talking about... I mean, I love Michael J. Fox, but then I hear that and I think, God, I can't... almost don't even want to watch you anymore. But Jack Black took to the stage at a BOVET 1822 and Paul Haggis Artists for Peace and Justice inaugural Songs from the Cinema benefit. Jeez, if it's more than 6 words, isn't it a cult? That was a concert, and he said he hopes Meryl Streep trashes President Donald Trump from the podium at Sunday's Academy Awards. Yeah, he calls Trump an a-hole and says that he hopes that she talks more about him. I mean, I don't want to continue going on and on about Hollywood and all the bad things they say. We all know that they're a bunch of liberals, but like I said, it's just one of those things that it's reached a point now to where I just want these guys, they have too much money, it's very clear. I want them to shut up and go back to acting. And, you know, if people would just let Donald Trump do his job for a little while, I think they would see that he is honestly there to make America great again. He's not there to be a racist. I've got Sony Johnson at CPAC saying systemic racism and white supremacy belong to the Democrats. No truer words have been said. She slammed progressive politics for hurting black business owners and wrecking families in a fiery February 23rd CPAC speech at the National Harbor. Quote, "What if I told you I actually agree with Black Lives Matter? What if I told you institutionalized racism is real in America?" she said, describing how progressive President Woodrow Wilson believed America would be better if the races were segregated. She continued, "What if I told you institutionalized racism was real in America and came through a president named FDR? What if I told you that minimum wage laws were there to protect white jobs from black workers through unionization? That actually happened in this country. What if I told you that price controls put out by FDR actually bankrupted black farms? People who worked for themselves their entire lives were now forced to go to government and beg for welfare. What if I told you that white supremacy is real in America and came from the very first gun law, that black people had no right to protect themselves from the KKK?" Johnson said to applause and appreciative amens from the audience. All of these factors culminated in a campaign of self-professed Woodrow Wilson-era progressive. Who wants to push an FDR jobs program? Who loves Planned Parenthood? And who hasn't met a gun law she didn't like? And who ran on the Democrat side? Hillary Clinton. Every single aspect of systemic racism and white supremacy they have pushed remains on the Democratic side. They came from the Democrat side, and they remain on the Democrat side. You have an option. You have a choice. I'm not telling you this administration. I'm not telling you this president. I'm telling you this conservative ideology is your choice. I'm not telling you it's fun. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm telling you, in the end, it's worth it. Every single drop is worth it. And she says, so before I go, it's a battle with Black Lives Matter. Can we build our army, please? Yeah, see, there you go. I mean, and that's what I'm talking about here. Black Lives Matter is funded by the Democrats, by the liberals, by the people giving money to Hillary Clinton. And yet we have black people in Hollywood and actors in Hollywood coming out and saying it's all Trump. Can you imagine what this world would have been like had Hillary Clinton been elected? And by the way, can she go ahead and leave already? Because she's back in the news. I just saw this morning. I mean, I thought, you know what, I got all these news sounds. Can we pick a different one? Let's go on another one. Yeah, okay, there we go. Hillary Clinton back in the news. Robo-Hillary returns, awkward video to Democrats. Friday, former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton delivered a video message to the Democratic Party ahead of Saturday's vote to choose the next chair of the Democratic National Committee, which, by the way, we have a choice now. You know, there's so much to go over. It's really amazing that I didn't touch on everything yesterday. We'll get to their choice in a couple of minutes here. But anyway, Clinton said, ideas we championed, quote, are now inspiring leaders and activists across the country. Nearly 66 million votes are fueling grassroots energy and activism. And everywhere, people are marching, protesting, tweeting, speaking out, and working for an America that's hopeful, inclusive, and big-hearted. She says, from the Women's March to airports where communities are welcoming immigrants, refugees, and people of every faith, to town hall meetings where people are speaking up for health care, the environment, good jobs, and all the other issues that deserve our passionate support. The challenges we face as a party and a country are real, so now more than ever, we need to stay engaged in the field and online, reaching out to new voters, young people, and everyone who wants a better, stronger, fairer America. We as Democrats must move forward with courage, confidence, and optimism and stay focused on the elections we must win this year and next. Let resistance plus persistence equal progress for our party and our country. And this is what you can understand when we talk about Sony, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Johnson saying what she said at CPAC. All of this racism, all of this divisive division tactics are coming from the Democrats. And this right here epitomizes what I'm talking about. When you hear Hillary Clinton saying grassroots energy and activism. We don't need more activism in this country. We need people to unite together and support our new president who's trying to drain the swamp of all the corruption, a lot of which was created by people like the Clintons, and a lot of it actually from the Clintons themselves. She says people are marching and protesting, and she's happy for that. She says they need to stay focused and continue doing it. That's like what Obama would say for 8 years. Stay focused and continue doing what you're doing. I think it's a disgrace, all of these protests. Because, for example, I talked about yesterday the Women's March. It's not a disgrace that women want to stand together and stand up for something. It's a disgrace that they are marching against a fake cause. Saying that they need equal rights. They have equal rights. Listen, if they want to march for legal abortion, then they could at least say that they are marching for legal abortion. Because, I mean, at least that would be being honest. But instead, they have to try to disguise it and say it's for equal rights, as if Trump is trying to take away their right to vote. It's ridiculous. It's a disgrace. And then Hillary comes out and says to stay focused and continue. I was looking for, as well, I had just a little bit earlier, an article talking about, yes, here it is. Found it. Meet the terrorist behind the next Women's March. That's right, this is from the New York Post. Here's the left's next great idea for bringing down President Trump. Another Women's March, because the first one did so well, which means another public instance of Trump haters shouting slogans to one another and mistaking it for constructive politics. I like that. It's not constructive, it's destructive, by the way. And speaking of that, a terrorist running the Women's March here, it was funny to hear Bill Maher saying that the word for Bannon calling for deconstruction of administration is terrorist. But we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, on March 8th, organizers seem to be aiming for a different vibe than the librarians and pussy hats elements that made the first Women's March after Trump's inauguration so adorable. Instead of milling around Washington, organizers have in mind a great strike called the Day Without a Woman. In a manifesto published in The Guardian on February 6th, the brains behind the movement are calling for a new wave of militant feminist struggle. That's right, militant, not peaceful. The document was co-authored by, among others, Rasmea Youssef O'Day, a convicted terrorist. She spent 10 years in prison for her part in 2 terrorist bombings. That's right, she's a Palestinian. She was convicted in Israel in 1970 for her part in 2 bombings, one of which killed 2 students while they were shopping for groceries. She spent 10 years in prison. Can you believe this? Yesterday I made the statement that the first Women's March was set up by women Islamists, and they were on TV in a hijab, talking about their marches and how and the women in America, in my opinion, had no idea who actually set this up. They did it for solidarity, but they really were just doing it because it turned into a clique. It turned into a cool thing. I had lots of friends even on Facebook talking about how they were so proud of their fellow women, and they themselves were in wherever they were in the big cities marching because they wanted solidarity. And I mean, this is crazy. I mean, this is like I can't think of the word, but groupthink, right? Where you just, like lemmings, just blindly follow the masses. But this woman here, Rasmea Youssef O'Day, is setting up the next one. She managed to become a U.S. citizen in 2004. She's like the Palestinian female version of the Weather Underground guy that's Obama's advisor. I have to look up his name too. I'm having a hard time this morning. But anyway, in 2004, by lying about her past, great detective work, INS, says the New York Post, but was subsequently convicted in 2014 of immigration fraud for the falsehoods. Unbelievable. See, how can they catch that? But whatever. However, she won the right to a new trial set for this spring, by the way. She's still under investigation by claiming she had been suffering from PTSD at the time she lied on her application. As if that keeps you from divulging information about the fact that you were in prison for 10 years for terrorist activity. Oh, and in her time as a citizen, she worked for a while as an Obamacare navigator. This is unbelievable. You can see why she's a hero to the left. Another co-author, Angela Davis, is a Stalinist professor and longtime supporter of the Black Panthers. Davis is best known for being acquitted in a 1972 trial after 3 guns she brought or 3 guns she bought were used in a courtroom shootout that resulted in the death of a judge. She celebrated by going to Cuba. A third co-author of this new militant women's march, Tithi Bhattacharya, I can't say the name, sorry, praised Maoism in an essay for the International Socialist Review, noting that Maoists are on the terrorist quote list of the U.S. State Department, Canada, and the European Union, which she called an indication that Maoists are back in the news and, quote, by all accounts, they are fighting against all the right people. You know you're dealing with extremism when someone admits to hating Canada. The International Women's Strike is meant to be a grassroots affair, which is what Hillary was talking about she's so proud of, with womensmarch.com promising more information about how to participate in local protests across the U.S. Women around the country are being urged to walk off their jobs and join a demonstration near them. According to the Guardian Peace, women should spend their day blocking roads, bridges, and squares, abstaining from domestic care and sex work, and boycotting pro-Trump businesses. Also, every woman is supposed to wear red in solidarity. And I just mentioned a few minutes ago that blocking traffic, especially on bridges and interstates, is actually a federal offense. So they are asking these women to break the law and do it for solidarity. I mean, can you believe this? Can you believe this divisiveness? Why is it that people want to divide the country so badly? I mean, Michael Savage talks about how a civil war is here. And I'm really starting to believe it. I mean, I had some optimism for the future, especially with Trump. But I'm telling you, I don't know how he can battle this without the hand of God, because it's like the left is dead set on creating this world where everyone hates everyone. And all of these people are marching, saying because Trump won and Hillary lost. But yet Hillary is the groups that are being funded for these protests also gave their money to Hillary. So I wonder, would these things still be going on had she won the election? And what would be their reason for doing it had that happened? I had Bill Maher talking about Trump's stormtroopers are pulling 16-year-olds out of classrooms to deport them. I was looking for this just a few minutes ago. But this was from Friday's broadcast of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher. He was also talking about Steve Bannon, but take a listen.
Yeah, she's very mad at him. Of course, she's a transgender Republican. You know, I don't really give a crap where you crap. And I fully support the LGBT, AEIOU, and sometimes Y movement, but a transgender Republican, that's just weird. And what she said was, President Trump, from one Republican to another, this is a disaster. I love the self-centeredness of this, where she draws the line. You know, Bruce Jenner was an idiot. Adding tits didn't make him a genius. Really. Trump's stormtroopers are pulling 16-year-old Mexican kids out of classrooms to send them back to Mexico. That's okay, but mess with my right to pee? Shame on you, sir.
Yeah, and the bathroom thing is, I talked about that yesterday, but
Get informed on
let me
today's
tell you
top
this.
stories. I'm Amanda Putman. Here's a quick...
Trump is not pulling anybody out of schools with his stormtroopers. He is rounding up illegal aliens who are here illegally and who need to be sent back to where they came from, so that the infringement upon our economy will stop. I wanted to also mention this, by the way. Part of the statement I read from Hillary was about the election of the leader for the Democratic Party. That has taken place now. Thomas Perez elected the first Latino leader of the Democratic Party. This comes from the Washington Post. Former Labor Secretary Thomas Perez was elected the first Latino chair of the Democratic National Committee on Saturday, narrowly defeating Representative Keith Ellison at the end of a contentious battle over the fate of the beleaguered party in the age of President Trump. Perez's victory concluded the first contested race for the DNC leadership since 1985, a contest the party had extended by a month to allow more debate. It put in place the Democratic leadership that will navigate thousands of state and local elections, where the party hopes to reverse the losses of the past 6 years, and a 2020 presidential race that could divide the party again. Ellison's defeat was a blow to the party's liberal wing, personified by activists, labor leaders, and organizers, many of whom had supported the presidential bid of Senator Bernie Sanders and had come to Atlanta to cheer Ellison on. Many of them warned that by picking Perez, the party was alienating the growing resistance that has organized against Trump. The race was close enough that it required a second round of balloting, with Perez winning 235 of 435 votes cast, with tensions still high as the result was announced. 9 Ellison supporters chanted "Party for the people, no big money," and stormed out of the room. So, interesting information there. So I have here President Trump's weekly address that I want to play as well. And then we're going to close this show up by just going over what's happened with the Clintons as well, because now the head of the airport in Arizona wants to strip Bill Clinton's name off of the airport. And what does that mean?
My fellow Americans, as Black History Month 2017 comes to a close, I am very grateful for the many wonderful opportunities to honor African American heroes, faith leaders, entrepreneurs, and the many others who changed the course of our nation. We are blessed by the lives and examples of those who have made this nation a beacon of freedom, talent, and unbreakable American spirit. This week, I had the privilege of visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture right here in Washington, D.C. It's a new, beautiful Smithsonian museum that serves as a shining example of African Americans' incredible contributions to our culture, our society, and our history. It also tells of the great struggle for freedom and equality that prevailed against the sins of slavery and the injustice of discrimination. The work and love of the people who helped create such a masterpiece is a testament to the legacy of so many leaders it honors. I left that museum confident that together, America can overcome any challenge. There's a great quote by Muhammad Ali in the museum. "I shook up the world," he said, and that is what he did. So did leaders like Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, Martin Luther King, and so many others. They shook up the world for the better because they inspired our nation to march towards justice and freedom for all. Today and every day, I pledge to continue that march so that every American, no matter his background, no matter her background, has the chance to climb that great ladder of success. It was very special to accompany Dr. Ben Carson and his family for the first time seeing the Carson exhibit. I am proud that soon he will serve in my cabinet as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. HUD has a very, very powerful meaning far beyond housing. It's about transforming our communities, about bringing back hope, and Ben will do a fantastic job. That's what I'm committed to doing also. I want every African-American child, family, and worker to have access to great schools, safe communities, and good-paying jobs. I want every disadvantaged child in America to have a choice about where they go to school, so important. I also want to honor and promote the achievements of historically black colleges and universities throughout our nation. They do a fantastic job. They're not given the credit that they deserve, and they're going to start getting that credit. In order to help African Americans thrive, we're working very hard to make sure that every child can grow up in a safe community and have access to high-paying jobs. We've lost a lot of our best jobs to other countries, and this has hurt the African American community very badly. This week I met with manufacturing CEOs. We're going to be working to bring back those jobs, and I mean really good-paying jobs. I'll be talking more about these issues in my joint session address to Congress and to all Americans next Tuesday evening. I hope you will be watching. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
And Trump makes those messages weekly. Of course, Obama did too. I think it's just what the president does in general. But I enjoy listening to those because he always has something good to say. But that really outlines right there what he's trying to do. He's trying to be the job's president. And I just don't understand why some people can't seem to understand that. I do like the fact, however, that he will not attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner. This coming from Breitbart News as well. Donald Trump said Saturday he will not attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner, breaking with an annual tradition in which the U.S. president is the guest of honor at a lighthearted roast held by journalists. I will not be attending the White House Correspondents Association dinner this year. Please wish everyone well and have a great evening. Of course, the question is, why would he attend it when he is coming out so hard against the fake news? Hopefully, they will start to get the picture here. But there were several news organizations which had also pulled out of this dinner. He tweeted that response. The White House Correspondents Association, which organizes the dinner, insisted the April 29th event would still go on as planned as a celebration of the First Amendment and the important role played by an independent news media in a healthy republic. Quote, we look forward to shining a spotlight at the dinner on some of the best political journalism of the past year and recognizing the promising students who represent the next generation for our profession. And I said when Trump went into office that I hope he breaks from the mainstream, from the establishment, and I think this is part of what he's doing there. Because he doesn't have to attend all these things just because it's tradition. If he doesn't believe in what these organizations are putting out, if he doesn't believe what they are doing is correct, then he should tell them that, which he has publicly. And he should avoid these type of dinners in order to make a statement, and that's exactly what he's doing. Trump's tweet came a day after he renewed his assault on the media by calling it, quote, the enemy of the people, which it is. Because, again, a lot of these Hollywood people, they wouldn't even have a platform to say this stuff that they say about, like, for example, Leslie Jones. We've read so many of them today already. Jack Black, Michael J. Fox. They wouldn't have a platform if it wasn't for the media, and a lot of what they say is so divisive. It's doing much more harm than good. He said, quote, in an ongoing battle in which he labeled the Fourth Estate fake news and the opposition party. On Friday, the White House also denied access to an off-camera briefing to several major U.S. media outlets, including CNN, the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, and Politico. Smaller outlets that have provided favorable coverage of the Trump administration, such as Breitbart and the One America News Network, received a green light to attend the so-called gaggle in the White House spokesman Sean Spicer's office. And it goes on. Okay, to kind of close up the show here, I wanted to talk about what was going on with the Clintons. There's been a report that the Arkansas state senator proposes a bill to remove Clinton name from their airport. In Little Rock, Senator Jason Rapert's Republican from Conway bill doesn't mention Bill or Hillary Clinton directly, but it would prohibit any publicly funded airport or building from taking the name of anyone living or a person who has served an elected office in the past 10 years before the structure was completed. This is being reported by Reuters. You have a president, quote, who was impeached for having an affair with an intern in the Oval Office and then disbarred, he said. Rapert told KARZ that the Clintons should be, quote, disqualified because they were living and held public office when the airport was renamed. Former President Bill Clinton was impeached for lying about an affair, of course, but later acquitted. Little Rock Mayor Mark Stadola disagreed with the bill, saying the name does not negatively affect the state or city. And this is all coming from a report that came out, a shock report actually, of a man who helped funnel Chinese money to Clinton. Actually, he made an insurance policy because he feared assassination. And this is coming from Infowars.com. Author and historian Doug Weed recently got his hands on a bombshell video footage which shows Bill Clinton's former money man, Johnny Chung, spilling the beans on a deal he had helped facilitate between the former U.S. president and the Chinese back in 1996. Chung shot the video in 2000 as an insurance policy amidst fears he would be assassinated for his knowledge of Chinagate. The Chinese-American businessman gave details of the illegal operation on film before it was duplicated and distributed to his close friends and family members in a secret video. I have that video now, and you can take a listen to what he said.
Sentencing judge, Manuel Real, federal judge in Los Angeles, telling him that they were victimized by Johnny Chung and that you took advantage of them. And because of this, the judge should throw the book at you.
As you said, the DNC portrayed themselves as a victim, victimized by Johnny Chung. And when the judge delayed the sentence totally 5 times, all the way to the last day of December 14, 1998. The first sentence he said, it's very strange. The giver come plead guilty in front of me, and givee get off free. And the second sentence, I'm going to quote unquote, he said, if the Mr. Richard Sullivan of the DNC, and then the DNC chairman Don Farlow, these two gentlemen doesn't know what's going on here. They are two dumbest politicians I ever see. And the third sentence, he said, it's very strange why our Attorney General, Janet Reno, does not appoint independent counsel.
And this is after he's read your secret grand jury testimony.
After he know all my sentencing information.
FBI agent present. Immediately you're put under, you and your family, put under protection yet again. This was, as I recall, on a Friday. You're in protection Friday night. Someone in the FBI or the Justice Department decides to call off the team protecting you, to sign them off your case, immediately and permanently. Again, to their surprise and to their disappointment. How did you feel when that happened, and what did you do about that?
Well, that was on Saturday morning. I found out all the FBI was called off, and I called you, Bob. I called my pastor in our church, and then we all met, and you guys decided to protect me and my family from that point. And the following Monday or Tuesday, I called the FBI office, and happened to be the U.S. Assistant Attorney again on the phone with me. And he said, Mr. Chung, your case is over. As a normal American citizen, what did you do if you feel your life in danger? You just call 911. I said, what? You just call 911. I said to my probation officer, he asked me to call 911. And she said, what? I said to Judge Manuel Rio, my sentencing judge, and he also said, what? Call 911. I made a mistake. Indeed, I paid a huge price for that. But I want to thank the Lord Jesus Christ for his mercy and grace. And I want to thank my family, my church member who prayed for me all the time. But since the day one, I became American citizen. I give my loyalty to the United States already. I want to send a message to the President of the United States. Mr. President, my loyalty to the United States, not for sale. Never.
And this package was, you didn't ask for it, unsolicited, but they tell your attorneys in this package how you can take the Fifth Amendment.
My attorney is a fine and good attorney at the West Coast. Besides, every American attorney, they know how to take a fact. That's the message I want to say here.
So they didn't need instruction on what the Fifth Amendment was or how it could be invoked.
They sent a package to my attorney for what purpose?
What was your attorney's reaction to receiving this package?
Oh, he said in the nationwide television, ludicrous.
Congress, David Chippers, they don't know about what's happening with General G, but the FBI certainly was aware. Now, the FBI, at one point, develops a plan to arrest General G at the Los Angeles International Airport. And they would need your cooperation. What do they ask you to do in that situation?
At one point, the FBI told me that, and the Department of Justice people, they said, General G had to come to visit the United States at least once a year. And then also he got a son here in the United States. And then they were thinking to take me to the airport, international airport in Los Angeles, and try to pretend to put some blood on my mouth. And then the only thing I need to do is point the finger to General G when he arrived. And then that's all they want me to do. I say, if you really want me to help, you can really hit me. You don't need to put a blood on my face. Okay, you can really hit me, and then we can go over there. I can go over there and point my finger to him. This is a gentleman.
Okay, so in case you missed it, that's the video that Johnny Chung made as an insurance policy because he was afraid of assassination, according to him. But just to kind of give a recap of what's going on there, in this shocking admission, Chung said the FBI tried to co-opt him to be in a sting operation against a top-level Chinese official. According to him, the FBI asked him to punch the Chinese official in the mouth at the Los Angeles International Airport. In the op, Chung was supposed to have blood applied to his mouth just before physically pointing his finger at the official for reasons unstated. Chung also said just days before his grand jury testimony that his around-the-clock FBI protection was abruptly called off. Quote, "They could care less about my personal safety. They told me to call 911 if I feel threatened." In all, Chung made 49 visits to the White House during Bill Clinton's presidency between 1994 and 96, firmly establishing his ties to the scandal. According to testimony given to the U.S. House Committee investigating the matter in 1999, the money came from Chinese General Ji Xingde. Leading up to the transfer of funds, Xingde reportedly told Chung, quote, "We like your president very much. We would like to see him reelected. I will give you $300,000 US. You can give it to the president and the Democrat Party." In a plea deal, Chung was sentenced to 5 years of probation along with a community service for his role in China Gate. The shocking admission ended up in the hands of Doug Wead before he authored the book Game of Thorns, which further allowed him to establish proof of Chinese influence in Washington. This is exactly what Donald Trump is talking about when he says he needs to drain the swamp. And that's exactly why he's avoiding this correspondence dinner and doing a lot of the other, taking a lot of the other measures that he's taking, is to break himself away from this establishment that has watched this kind of corruption. I mean, the video you just saw was on television back in the mid-90s. I mean, that was public knowledge. And the media has allowed this type of stuff to go on. People like the Clintons have allowed this to continue to go on for so many years. And now the same people are the ones who are inciting violence in all of these riots and protests, as we've talked about today. And that's why Trump wants to come in here, drain the swamp, create an efficient government, and then set it up so that when he leaves office, people after him can continue in the same vein. Just like I mentioned before, with presidents like Washington and Jefferson, who didn't want to be president. They did it because they wanted to create an efficient government and leave it that way for their predecessors. One last item for you here. Manning, sabotage of Trump agenda by bureaucrats should spark 10 to 20% reduction of federal workforce. This is from Michael Patrick Leahy. Americans for Limited Government President Rick Manning wants Congress to help President Trump get rid of rogue bureaucrats who are not serving the American people by cutting the personnel budgets of non-defense civilian departments and agencies, reducing the enacted full-time equivalent number for each department, agency, and office by 10 to 20% reduction in workforce on a last one in, first one out basis, according to a statement released on Friday. Quote, by now it should be abundantly clear to the Trump administration that there are Obama administration holdovers in the 1.3 million non-defense civilian federal workforce who have no other intention than to politically damage the White House. It's becoming more and more obvious every day with all of these leaks that are happening. And people are giving Trump flack for saying that it's illegal, but they are. I mean, classified information is being leaked out of the White House, and it's coming from these Obama operatives who were put in while he was in the administration and have not yet been let go. Breitbart News has reported extensively on many ways federal bureaucrats who oppose President Trump's policies are sabotaging his agenda. Quote, that sabotage comes in several forms, from secretly circulating emails among fellow ideologically committed members of the federal bureaucracy, plotting strategy, to working behind the scenes with Democratic legislators to create out-of-the-ordinary bureaucratic actions, to leaking confidential documents to the press, as Breitbart News reported earlier this month. A number of federal bureaucrats are expanding the means by which they are resisting the policies of President Trump. On Tuesday, federalnewsradio.com in Washington, D.C., part of the Hubbard radio empire, owned by Minnesota billionaire Stanley Hubbard, reported that, quote, Twitter has become an outlet of resistance to the Trump agenda and information for federal employees. When a former employee of Badlands National Park took over the park's official Twitter account to tweet climate change facts in direct defiance of the Trump administration, they couldn't have known that they were starting a movement. Almost 1 month later, more than 80 accounts claiming to represent various federal organizations and employees, many of them national parks, exist in opposition to the Trump administration and its policies. Quote, the goal and method of these accounts vary widely. Some stick to spreading scientific facts and research performed by their agencies, especially regarding climate change. That's from David Thornton of the federalnewsradio.com. Others, lacking specific actions or nominees to oppose, share memes, and ridicule the president, his staff, and lawmakers to maintain engagement. And it goes on and on. So in the weeks to come, we will see what Trump manages to do, because the problem is he has to drain the swamp if he's going to be able to move his agenda forward, his agenda which I believe in which you, if you have interest in America, should also agree with as well. Well, that's been your weekend news. I'm Nick O'Kelly. Thanks for joining us here on the Sit and Spin Radio Show on the Sit and Spin Radio Network. You can catch all of the archives on Spreaker Web Radio. Search for the Spreaker.com, Spreaker.com. Search for the Sit and Spin Radio Network. We'll see you next time. Same time, same place, different day. I'm Nick O'Kelly.